All right. Welcome, everyone. As you're joining, go ahead and drop a comment wherever you're watching from. If you are registered, that's always what we recommend. We send out information about these workshops ahead of time so that you can register ahead of time. And for those folks that register, we're able to give you some templates, some direct access to things. For those of you that are watching on social media, we'll be watching those comments as well. So definitely drop any comments as well. But we'll give everybody some time to join. But as you're jumping in, just say hello, and there we go. Welcome, Tom. Glad to have you here. This is something that I am really excited to be sharing with everybody today. And I'll share, kind of as folks are jumping on, I'll share a lesson that I have been learning and appreciating a lot recently here is that in business as entrepreneurs, we start our businesses by doing everything ourselves. Or most of us do, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. And that's a great way to start. But as we grow, and the longer I'm in business, I've realized that we can grow a lot faster when we start to find the right people to bring onto our team, the right partners to work with as vendors, the right services, because ultimately part of our job as entrepreneurs is to take our vision and spread it to the world and make a positive impact. And we can't do that effectively unless we get right folks on our team to help. And so I'm really grateful that Kayla is on our team because she has managed to take my little ideas and some of the things that I've worked on over the years and make them really effective and break them down in such a way that we can teach the things that, like I said, pieces of that in my head. But today's topic is something I'm really excited about. It's definitely something that is trending significantly right now and is going to be a major factor in 2025. And if you haven't hung around us here yet at Business Marketing Engine, we are folks that are always very methodical in our planning and our execution, and we're always looking ahead. And that's something that I encourage everybody here to do as well, because when you take time to step back and plan, it makes you so much more effective with your results. You get consistency over time. You get to target, specific goals and move towards them over time. Instead of what we all see in our feed, we all see in our inboxes, we see all around us. Everybody's always talking about trying something brand new or switching tactics, or here's a new thing you need to do. And if you switch tactics all the time, and if you're not methodical in how you go about growing your business and marketing your business and serving the folks that you want to serve, it creates entrepreneurial poverty. If you take a step back and slow down and are willing to put in the time and invest in effective planning, learning new long-term strategies, and really look at your marketing as a long-term play and not, just trying to, put the latest tactic out there, and you're going to reap amazing benefits. And Tom, who's on with us today, him and I were chatting a few days ago, and he shared something really cool that I'll share here with folks. That Tom has been in our world here at BME for many years, and he's been a student of marketing, and he's really applied things that we've been able to share with him, and of course on his own learning as well. And because he's really been consistent in how he shows up in his marketing, it's opened up amazing opportunities. And Tom shared with me over the weekend that because he's so consistent in his marketing, he was in an event and somebody came up to him and said, I know who you are. I see all your stuff. Can I get your advice? And so this person ended up talking to Tom, and Tom gave them some excellent advice because Tom is really skilled in what he does. And because he's marketing what he does and he's out there consistently, the person that he met with was able to make a massive multi-million dollar impact on the business just from Tom's advice. And Tom would have never had that opportunity if he wasn't consistent in his marketing. And so that's what we're all about here: consistency over time, planning ahead, obviously paying attention to market trends and things like that, but not switching strategies and tactics, all the time. Instead, focusing on the principles of marketing. And when we do that, we have just amazing opportunities to grow. So as you're dropping in, like I said, drop a comment, let us know where you're joining from, say hello. As you have questions, please put those in. Kayla's going to be teaching here and walking us through some amazing content. Myself and Ashley on the BME team here will be watching the comments, and we'll be able to answer things for you. And of course, we'll direct anything to Kayla that will be relevant as we get to some question and answer sections. So with that said, I'm going to turn it over to you, Kayla. I know you're going to have me back on here in a little bit, but I'm going to turn it over to you and let you get started with everything.
All right, perfect. Thank you for that intro, Gabe. I think today's workshop is going to be really exciting. This is a topic that I have been interested in for many years, and something that I have been watching, the background psychology of corporate social responsibility and building a legacy within your business that I think has started becoming more popular in the past couple of years, even though this concept has existed for a while now, actually. And so today we're going to talk about kind of how corporate social responsibility has expanded and shifted over time, at least in the past 5 years, and kind of what the responses to it has been. And then I'm also going to do some additional breakdowns of, of how you can create your own CSR tactic and how you can implement that into your business to bring in a lot more clients that are aligned with your values. So moving on, I feel like I kind of already covered this, but like I said, there's a couple of different types of corporate social responsibility that we're going to go through. We're going to talk about why it's important to both your business and your consumers. We're also going to talk about what the actual differences between doing a corporate social responsibility tactic and having an ability reputation for a high quality product. Of course, we're going to talk about who cares, because it's important to know your audience and how they're going to engage with your CSR tactics. And then we're also going to go through our giveaway today, which is a CSR tool for, first of all, creating your CSR tactic and creating your transparency reports, and then also creating your marketing material so that you can bring in more of those clients that align with your values. So just a basic definition of CSR for those of you who don't know what it is. Corporate social responsibility is a business model by which companies make a concerted effort to operate in ways that enhance rather than degrade society and the environment. And so while CSR has been most commonly associated with environmental and charitable practices, there's actually a couple of other areas that we're going to shift into for the different types of CSR that exist as well. So for our first type, we have philanthropic, and our second is environmental. And don't worry, I'll break these down in a little bit more detail here soon for what each type covers. But we also have financial and ethical. So for the first one, environmental. So environmental is exactly like it sounds. It includes sustainable manufacturing, finding ways to recycle and reuse materials in your business to make it more effective and efficient, offsetting negative impacts from your business, creating eco-friendly product lines. There's many other different examples that are covered by this section, but environmental is essentially any way that you are trying to change your efforts in order to positively impact the environment. Philanthropic is the same way. So this can include charitable contributions. It can include philanthropic partnerships, employee support for different like economic developments that are going on. And then it can also include community engagement. And then for financial, financial is something that bleeds a little bit more into all three of these different CSR tactics that we're going to cover. But financial can include, making sure that you have the finances in place to actually be able to move forward with your CSR tactic, and not just, not just say that you're going to make a move on creating a positive impact, but also having the finances to back it up. It can also include making active donations and also investing in programs. And this last one is ethical. So this is the one that I think is being talked about more and more. But it includes inclusive customer service, including employee training around it, just even like your employee well-being, and then also having diverse vendor partnerships. So there's a couple different benefits, right? Because if we're going to include a CSR tactic in our business, we need to think about how it's going to impact our company and how it's going to impact our consumers. And so one of the benefits for business is it can boost morale. And if you are able to boost morale in your company, it can also help unite your team around your mission and vision. It can also help you find better fit employees. And if you have more employees that believe in your company's mission and are dedicated to actually coming to work every day and enjoying what their job tasks and what they're doing, then you're also going to be able to reduce your employee turnover. And on top of it, it's also something that you can train your employees on so that you can avoid situations where you have accidental discrimination. And overall, you can just provide better customer service. For the consumer benefits, because it's not just something that impacts the internal side of companies, but also the external side. But for one of the consumer benefits, it can include, improving various aspects of society and giving back to your community, but it also creates a positive brand image for companies and allows you to create these deeper customer relationships as you get to understand what your consumers actually care about, It can also help you get that community recognition and build better partnerships and just overall build more opportunities within your community if you're being recognized for the positive impacts you're having, in your local community. And so something that's important I want to talk about, because this is something that is a little more highly controversial, is CSR versus ability reputation. So ability reputation is just being able to create a high quality product or being innovative in how you create your products. But CSR is the actual like philanthropic activities, community giving, and then cause related marketing. And so what was really interesting is there was actually a 2010 study that showed that people actually prefer buying from a for-profit company that had high quality products than they felt to buy from a nonprofit company that focused on social benefit products and services. Now, this was one of the initial questions that they asked in the survey, but as they went on to do more research, there was actually some interesting information that they got feedback for that somewhat contradicted this statement. So when it comes to CSR success, when a company plans on introducing a new product or service, companies that have CSR are actually more likely to have greater success than those who don't. And that's because people actually expect a new product to do well when the brand releases it. But if the product launch fails, they don't really feel a sense of concern for the brand because they assume the company is already doing well. So for brands that do have CSR, people feel the need to repay the business for their kindness towards the community and are more willing to invest in that new product. And so one of the characteristics of these kinds of people who feel that need to repay the business for their kindness is actually called high communal orientation. Now that's a mouthful, but it essentially means it's a type of personality trait for a person who has a high desire to give care for other people with the same interests as them. So not only do they tend to give care to others with the same interests as them, but they also are more receptive to CSR tactics for a specific brand. And as a result, those people are more likely to help a brand using CSR grow and succeed even when they're going through rough times. And so this is kind of a feedback loop that works really well for businesses using CSR tactics, because as you continue to give back to your community, people are able to physically see that impact that it's having and are happier to be able to make a one-stop shop, to be able to spend money with you, knowing that the additional profits that that company is making is going to be going towards, improving the life of their community in some impact. And so a few things I want to go over are some really good examples of how different positive, like 500 Fortune companies and even small businesses use CSR tactics in their communities. But then we're also going to talk about some really scandalous ones, because of course, there are a few companies that have tried to do good CSR tactics and have ultimately failed because they went about it the wrong way. And so the first group that I want to talk about is Microsoft. Now, Microsoft has many, many different CSR tactics. But for this one specifically, in 2019, the company ran an anonymous survey, and the feedback that they got showed that their employees were extremely unhappy. So they felt work was taking over their lives, productivity and profits were obviously down, and the VP took the time to stop and read that report and noticed that they had 700 highly skilled and specialized employees that could have left at any moment, being right there on the edge of deciding if they wanted to get a different job or not. And so the VP had HR step in, and what they identified was that nearly every employee was sitting in more than 27 hours of meetings per week. And so the initiatives that they took, allowed their employees to block out focus time on their calendars. And so these employees were allowed to sit back and do nothing on the clock if that's what they chose. But the purpose was to be able to allow them to think through some of the initiatives that they were taking themselves and work through some of the creative brainstorming for their tasks without having to be pulled into different meetings. And additionally, it also led to them reducing the number of hours that they had to spend in meetings by only making it to where the most essential meetings were where they were being included, because these groups were including maybe 50 plus people in each meeting. And so they recognized that not everybody was absolutely essential to showing up to those. So by giving their employees a little bit more time to sit down at work and actually work through their processes instead of having to do it after hours or on the weekends, they ended up having a higher employee retention, right? The 700 highly skilled and specialized employees didn't leave. The morale at the company increased because people felt like they were actually able to be productive in their positions. And as a result from those two things, productivity increased and then profit also increased. Another one is actually from my hometown. And so this one is with the Laramie Main Street, group that helps us with local e-commerce. They help with historical preservation, economic development, and social justice. But this group teamed up with several small businesses to help raise funds to bring in more traffic to our downtown area. So in our small town, we are constantly battling big giants like Walmart and Marshalls and other like mega stores to make sure that our small businesses are actually able to still stay open. And so the businesses that partnered with this nonprofit agreed that for every dollar that came to the store, they would donate it back to the community. And Laramie Main Street took all of those funds, and were able to put on free events for the people of Laramie to be able to come downtown and participate in, which as a result brought more commerce to the community and to these small businesses. And that increase in profit also allowed them to create more jobs around it. And so by being able to give the community these different opportunities and provide more opportunities to the businesses, it increased sales, it increased the more events to raise awareness around the main things that Laramie Main Street was focused on, and overall just like really impacted the community and just kind of was like an endless cycle of positivity, honestly. And so now is a great example of what not to do when you are picking a CSR tactic. So I know that I've talked a couple with you in the BME crew office hours about this, but for one of my, I don't know if favorite's the word, but one of the most interesting failed attempts at CSR for me is Volkswagen. So back in 2014 or 2015, Volkswagen wanted to create a car that created cleaner emissions, and that was through one of their newer models that they were releasing. And the marketing did really, really well. This was a topic that was really getting some popularity, and people immediately bought it. Several years down the road, somebody realized after picking apart one of the vehicles that the emissions that were actually coming from the vehicle were 3 times the legal limit that's allowed in the United States. And as they dug even further into it, they realized that there was also a line of like software and coding that they had added to manipulate the output and manipulate the results that were coming from the controlled environment where these tests were being handled. And so as soon as everybody realized what was happening, a couple of the results that came from it was it cost about $7.3 million just to recall all of those cars. It also cost them nearly $4.5 billion in fines and fees. Because of this massive shift and this massive controversy, they lost over 1/3 of their shares. And it also created some massive consumer distrust they are still dealing with today. So if you guys need a good example of what not to do for these sort of situations, then you guys can always look to Volkswagen. So we've talked through a couple of different examples of what CSR is and the 4 different types. We've also talked about the examples from different businesses we've seen, how it impacts consumers and the company. But who actually cares about this, right? Because
All right. Looks like Kayla's having a little bit of a connection issue, so she'll be right back here in just a minute. But while we're waiting, I'd love to hear in the comments, 1, have you considered doing anything like this? And maybe you didn't, know the labeling of, corporate social responsibility. Maybe you haven't heard that type of language before. But have you ever thought through, like, how can I really show up not only personally for my community, but show up as a business? I'd love to hear your thoughts there. And it looks like Kayla's connection's coming back here, so we'll have her back on in a minute. You can just pop on when you're ready here, Kayla. But I'd love to hear what everybody's thinking so far, because to be honest, there's some of these things that I was aware of and that we've done as a company for years. But I'm really happy that Kayla's diving into this research for everyone, because I did not realize just how impactful it is. And I never really thought about the aspect that I always think about in other aspects of marketing, and that is when we start to display our normal, authentic behavior, we attract more people like that. And it's, for us here at BME, we're all about being philanthropic and supporting our communities. And the more that we're going to continue to share and talk more about that, because it attracts like-minded folks like those of you that are here today. So love to hear your thoughts about that. And looks like Kayla's ready to roll here, so I'll turn it back to you, Kayla.
Thank you. Sorry about that. I just kind of looked over and all of a sudden my screen wasn't there anymore. So sorry about that, guys. So I'm not sure quite where I cut off, so I'm just going to start from the beginning for this slide. But ultimately, we covered a couple different topics so far about the different kinds of social responsibility that we've covered and talked about the different kinds of benefits that it can include. But ultimately, who cares? Because having a good CSR tactic is important, but it's also good to know how it is interacting with your audience, because ultimately, if you're going to use that as a marketing tactic, you need to know what their own psychographics are. And so there's a couple of interesting things to cover. And most of these are purchasing criteria, but as of 2022, the spending power that exists in the United States, the average per household is about $73,000 of purchasing or spending power. The biggest group starts with Gen X and then moves into millennials, followed by baby boomers. So the middle section of this chart is where most of the spending power in the United States is right now. Now, on top of it, there's also, you have to consider, and this is something that it definitely depends on the type of business you are and what the price point of most of your products is. But the hours that people spend doing research can vary greatly. For this group that is part of the less than 10 minutes, that's probably for people who are buying something that is less than $10. There's not a whole lot of risk involved in making a purchase like that. If it doesn't work out or the product isn't of high quality, oh, well, you spent $10. Now, for something that is a little bit of a higher range, maybe $100+, those people spend about 10 to 30 minutes researching a business and researching the product and reviews and anything about the company before actually making that investment. But if you're a kind of company who actually sells products that are in the thousands of dollars to tens of thousands of dollars, you're looking at having a much longer customer journey. And those groups are probably going to research you for several hours to even several days. And so that's something to also consider as you're thinking about what kind of audience type you're working with and how you can do the different layers of marketing and how to time those things out. And so for some of our bigger groups, with millennials and Gen Z, CSR is definitely a much higher topic or a much more popular topic to be talking about. But of all the different things that they really care about, these were the top 4. And so the first is they obviously want brands to sell high quality products. And remember, we talked about CSR versus ability reputation, but they also have the desire for a brand that values their opinions. They want to make sure that their own values align with the brands that they support. And that eventually trickles down to wanting the brands to be eco-friendly and social responsibility in some capacity, whether that's environmental, philanthropic, ethical, or even financial CSR, right? And so baby boomers and Gen X are kind of a contradiction. So it's actually not too surprising that, that 48% of Gen X, I can't talk. Baby boomers and Gen X actually don't want companies to be involved in CSR, or they don't think that the company should act on CSR because they don't see a company as a separate entity from the CEO that's running it. So if you're including CSR tactics, that's something that they think should be related to a person, not a brand identity. And so they assume that whenever those profits are going into that company and it's going to be used for what they assume is like a CSR tactic, there's a lot of skepticism with how they're going to use those funds. And so almost half of them would prefer that a company doesn't use any CSR at all. But ironically, they are also one of the biggest groups that donates every year. So boomers actually represent 51 million different donors, and they average around $6,060 per household in donations each year. So this is a group that if this is one of your main audiences, it's something to consider as you're thinking about introducing CSR tactics, is that the connotation that is associated with the term CSR is has a lot of controversy behind it because of how massive corporations have used it in the past, right? Because it's corporate social responsibility, but in reality, the topic we're really talking about today is just social responsibility. So you have to be careful with that language and how you present your different CSR tactics to this group. But fun fact is that by 2061, millennials and Gen Z, this group that cares very strongly about CSR compared to their boomer or Gen X parents, they will eventually inherit $59 trillion from those AG boomer parents. And I say only 37 years from now, but it's a lot closer than you think, especially if you're planning on creating a really strong legacy, so that when you start introducing these concepts to this new audience that is going to eventually move up in that spending power, it's better to have started now and have something that has a really strong background to it. And so why are we making such a big deal about corporate social responsibility now, right? We said that this is a topic that has already existed in the past, and now we're seeing ultimately that most people already have a CSR mindset, especially for what matters to them. So it does depend on the generation, but even for if we're looking at the lower spending groups like millennials and Gen Z, those groups are going to eventually become the next major spending power, and they're growing up around that CSR mindset. And so it's not a simple turnaround to get something like this going, but it's better to prep now and reap the rewards, after you have everything set up and in place. And that's just a legacy that you can continuously build off of, especially for this audience that's going to be interested in the most. And so some additional facts, because I am all about finding good data and sharing that with you guys. These are just some really interesting facts that I found directly related to having good CSR.
All right, we're going to keep persisting through this very important lesson and this training. And it's always funny to me when tech starts acting up. There's usually a reason. So I'm excited. We're getting about the halfway point here, and Caleb will be back with us here in a minute. But just like I said earlier, definitely let us know, what your thoughts are if you've tried things like this, or if you've seen those examples of what's worked well in the past or what hasn't worked well. And I put it in another way because, obviously, that's right, Colin, Elon Musk. I've seen, folks be doing these things and not really realize what it is. And so another way that I like to think about this is small business social responsibility. That's a huge part of what we do as entrepreneurs. I believe that entrepreneurs are truly the people in the world that are going to make the biggest difference. We don't need to rely on, huge corporations. We definitely don't need to rely on governments, but we can rely on other entrepreneurs to bring good into the world. And so this is why it's just so important to us. So it's like Kayla's going to be ready to join here in a second, and we'll keep at it here and make sure everything's running. But you want to bring yourself on stage, Kayla, and then we'll be good to go.
I figured it out. It's my virtual background. It doesn't like that I'm trying to blur my beautiful background back here.
Oh, good. Yeah, your background is fine, so that's better. We'll leave that off. Go ahead.
Now that it's turned off, I shouldn't disappear anymore. All right. So I'm just going to jump right off back into this topic. But thank you, Gabe. I really agree that small business social responsibility is another great way to put it, because I think that people are actually seeing a lot more value in these kind of tactics coming from smaller businesses. And I was talking even with Ashley, our lead copywriter, about this earlier, but it's harder to believe a bigger corporation when they say, oh, we have this wonderful charity, we want people to donate to it, and all the profits that are going to go to them, when they have such a massive history of so much distrust like Walmart. It's hard for me as a consumer to believe that Walmart has really good intentions, considering the way that they treat their employees and the kind of culture that company brings to their stores. And so that was kind of what I was talking about earlier, where this idea of CSR has such a negative connotation because it has been used primarily by corporations to hold them accountable, but the tactics and the mentality and the reason for why they exist are still valid. It's just a different way of looking at it. So I really like that concept, Gabe. So just jumping kind of back into the stats here. So sustainable products have an overall 17% share of the market, and then also a 32% share of growth. Products that have been marketed as sustainable grew almost 3 times faster than those who didn't. 75% of sustainable goods sell better online than in stores, so that's something to consider if you use e-commerce as a massive part of your business. And then also 78% of all consumers that were surveyed in the study felt that sustainability in some capacity was important. Like I said, whether it was through one of those 4 different types of CSR. 62% said that when they go to shop for something online or even in a store, they usually, if not always, look for something that says that it is a sustainable product. Now, remember, if you're going to say that you're sustainable, make sure that you have those transparency reports and you have that data to back up that you actually are sustainable, because if people find out otherwise, you're going to have yourselves a Volkswagen incident. And then 55% of consumers say they're more willing to pay for eco-friendly brands. And finally, 84% of customers say that poor environmental practices actually alienate them from the brand or company if it's something that is very obvious in the way that they're interacting with their community. So those are just some of the high level topics. Now I have all of these different resources in these slides, and I'm going to be sharing that to our school community. And so if you feel like going and of course fact checking me, because I always invite people to fact check me, and also just read up on some more really interesting content. That's something that I'm going to be sharing with the BME Crew school group. And so now we're actually going to take all the things that we have learned so far, and we're going to show you guys how to actually apply it into prepping to create a CSR tactic that is going to be successful, because very seldom are these like one-time projects. They can be, and it's very easy to do something. But again, one of the main focuses here is that we're talking about how you can build a legacy that is going to be something that is ongoing and long-term. So if you choose to pick a shorter timeline to do a quick, easy CSR tactic just to get some of that knowledge and experience under your belt, that's totally fine too. This tool works for either a long legacy or a short legacy. So Gabe, do you have that link to share with everybody so that they can download their tools?
Yeah, so I'll put this in chat for those that are live with us here, and I will post it up for those that are watching from the stream here. So if you go to bmesuccess.com/CSR, you will need to be logged into a Gmail or Google account to see this, but I'll give you a preview of it, and then you can click use the template. So give everybody a moment to do that here, and then Kayla's going to walk us through this. Well, everybody's getting a chance to pull it up and access that. I just want to remind everybody that inside of BME Crew, which is our marketing membership, where we help folks with everything from marketing and technology and business leadership and all the things that we're all about here at BME. If you need any help with this, all you have to do is put a request in, and the right team member and I on our side will walk you through this as well. But I do encourage everybody here today to grab a copy of this, walk through this, because it's going to give you an understanding of how you can apply everything we just talked about. I know, like I shared in the beginning of the workshop here, that we've been doing a lot of things, small business social responsibility for quite a while, and just being candid and honest, I didn't realize we probably should talk about it more until Kayla brought it up. And so I'm excited to walk through this, and Kayla's actually going to kind of interview me, and that way everybody can kind of see live how you can use this yourself. So yeah, the link's up there, and I'll turn it back to you, Kayla.
Perfect. Thank you. So I know that I've got only one screen that I can really share, but I also have my own copy of the same tool that you guys are going to be using on my other screen. And so as I walk through this, I'll also make sure to reference what kind of tabs you should be on in the tool, and then also where in the page you should be, so that you can stay aligned as I'm walking through these slides, because I want to make sure that we also have a little bit of an easier time going through these different points. So in that spreadsheet, you're going to find the intro or getting started tab. And so that's just kind of what we're going to be walking through today. So you guys don't have to look at it right now. But if you guys go back to that tool and you're like, oh gosh, I can't remember what Kayla said, I don't remember which part she mentioned that I need to do this or that, then I've got the step-by-step in that first intro tab so that you're able to do this on your own at any point. But what we really want to go to is actually the step one preparing tab, because all of the information that we add here is going to be very important, because it's going to guide other parts of the spreadsheet that is already automated. So you have to put in as little work as possible. So when you go into creating your own CSR tactic, there's a couple things that you want to consider: high fit versus low fit. Now, when you are looking at creating a CSR tactic, you have to think about how it aligns with your business. And this is extremely important, because if you have a low fit, then you are going to accidentally build a lot of distrust in your customers by not actively thinking this sort of thing through. So in these first couple of sections, you'll see at the very top that you need to enter your business name, very standard procedure, and then of course copying over your mission and vision statement into the two cells that are right below that business name.
Kayla,
yeah.
Sorry to interject quick. Do you want to try? I know we can only share one screen here. At least I don't think we can. We could try sharing two side by side. Actually, you could try that if you want. And it might be taxing your connection too much. But do you want to flip to the spreadsheet while you're covering some of that stuff? It might be useful for people to see that.
Yeah, let me see if I can do two, or if it's gonna blow up my computer. So.
Yeah. Or you can like share your whole screen or whatever you want to try. So I just thought it did walk people through that. Didn't mean to throw you off track there.
Oh, you're good. No, I agree. Spreadsheets are fun to a certain degree, but can also be very taxing to deal with. So that's totally fine by me. All right, But let me see if this view is something that is good or if it is ugly. So you guys can let me know which of these is actually useful. So here's my split screen. So I feel like that text is probably too small on the left side, huh?
Oh, no, that looks fine to me, actually.
Okay.
Ashley, if you want to throw in the comments and let us know what you think there, because I know you're live here, but that's probably better because I can read the slide okay. And this way we can look at the spreadsheet together too. That looks good to me, Kayla.
All right, perfect. So just to kind of recap where we were at so people know, we're just in this step 1 preparing tab right here. And so you guys want to make sure that you enter your business name. And I'll move this over so you guys can see it. And then copy over that mission statement and that vision statement, because again, all of these things are going to play into that second tab that I've created for the transparency report tool. Again, the whole point is so that you only have to enter information once and it automatically outputs a report that you can download and actually upload to different platforms. So I've got BME here. I've already got our mission and vision of the company pulled from our website. But what I'm going to have you help me do, Gabe, is kind of work through how to create this offer and identify some of these different CSR tactics. And so I know we've talked previously about how you did some CSR tactics with a group of younger students and helping them understand entrepreneurship. So I just kind of want you to walk me through what that initial suggestion that you made to the company was, and then also the problem that you were trying to solve.
For the entrepreneurship class I taught?
Yep.
Okay. So what do you want to know about it specifically?
Just what was the problem that you were trying to solve, or what was the reason that you were going and helping these students, and then we can get to the offer section next.
Cool. Yeah. So one of my clients ended up starting basically an unschooling, homeschooling business to provide support for people that don't want to do traditional school and want to homeschool or do unschooling with their kids. And so my client and friend created a community and a business around that, and realized that obviously for non-traditional thinkers that are in that space of homeschooling, unschooling, that entrepreneurship is a huge part of typically that space. And so my client Tanya reached out and said, hey, would you be willing to come in and teach these kids about entrepreneurship? And so I said, yeah, absolutely. I love teaching that. And they were age 10 to 16, I think was the age range. And so I was able to come in and teach them the basics of entrepreneurship, finding a problem that you can solve, finding an audience you can serve. And we got into the basics of obviously more high level stuff that we do here on these workshops and with our clients. But that was the basics of it.
Awesome. And so that's perfect, because for you guys who are kind of walking through your spreadsheet, that is a section where you would add the problem that you are actually trying to solve. So it's broken down really simply. So what is the actual problem? And I don't know if we would define this as an actual problem. It's just Gabe was looking for a way to be nice and do something really cool, but it is in its own way a CSR tactic. But Gabe, and you can let me know if this text sounds good, because I kind of went ahead and pre-inserted some of these things. But helping younger kids learn how to become a successful entrepreneur before reaching adulthood.
Yep, that's perfect.
And then, of course, the solution, because again, breaking these down into pieces is just going to help our transparency report tool, but teaching them simple skills, including money management, creative thinking, and collaboration.
Yep, that's exactly what we did.
Awesome. And so one of the ways that we double check whether this is a good fit to be marketing something as a CSR tactic for our business is you have to look at some of the main offers that you have as your business and decide, is it a fit with the things that we are trying to do actively to better our community? And so for BME, we do marketing services for entrepreneurs and small businesses. And so it makes sense that we would want to show younger kids these kind of life skills so that if they get to adulthood and they do decide they want to be an entrepreneur or they want to own their small business, then this is something that aligns with some of the things that we already do as a company, right? And so I would argue that that is actually a high fit for some of the things that we're doing. And I think I'm actually going to just go ahead and increase my screen here while we talk about these specific examples. But that's a high fit for what we're able to offer. And then do you think, Gabe, that this would be a financial, environmental, philanthropic, or an ethical type of CSR?
Financial, ethical, or environmental? I mean, I guess probably ethical, but to me, it's also kind of financial, because if you teach people to build businesses the way that we teach folks and help them, then you have a profitable business, and that means it's the virtuous circle, because like they're going to run a profitable business and they can take care of their families, and they can give back to their community and be philanthropic. So that's kind of how I'm looking at it.
Exactly. I totally agree. And I think that this one probably is a little bit more financial by teaching kids how to do proper money management skills. And then also I know, gave each of these groups, about, I think you said like $20 so that they could go run their own projects and figure out how to get like a really good like return on their own investments, and kind of teach like the concept of you only have this much to work with. What can you really do with it? Right.
Yeah. The challenges I gave teams of 2 kids $20, and they had to turn it into $50 by the end of 9 weeks. And every single one did. It was amazing.
Exactly. So, and one of the things that I'm going to share in school that is how to manipulate this spreadsheet a little bit more. Obviously, I'm trying to keep it high level, because for people who don't like playing with spreadsheets, which is most people who aren't me, I think I'm the only one at BME who actually like gets excited when they see a spreadsheet. I'm going to break down more on how you can kind of customize this a little bit more so that you can have the right kind of layout that you want. But to keep it for simplicity's sake, it is just best to think of, the singular CSR tactic that you're initiating, because it also helps you prioritize what kind of things you want to track and the things that you want to share with the public a lot easier too. Because you come up with this, but you've also got to market it. And if you say, oh, well, we do a little bit of this, but it also has a little bit of that and a little bit of this, it's going to just confuse you and make this process a whole lot harder. So, but no, I agree, Gabe. I think that this is definitely financial and ethical. But I think we'll just stick with the financial one for now, but that's something that you can easily change by just, opening up that bar and switching between the different ones. And so next is something that also helps you with the planning process, which is and this is something that you might have to go out and do on your own, but you can start adding at a high level what some of these groups are. But you want to think about the different kind of businesses that you can donate to and collaborate with, because if you're able to get more of that, if you're able to get more of your community to be involved, you're also going to be able to have a lot more brand recognition, because you're tapping into multiple different audiences through this CSR tactic. So it's better to have different groups that also are marketing you just as you are going to be marketing them in their own way. And you're also going to create more opportunities if you have other people who are working within your community that recognize the efforts that you're putting in. And you might find that a lot more people want to collaborate with you on even bigger projects. And so you would just enter that into the business name. And then of course, if there's other things that you want to be collecting just so that you can keep everything straight, you can add their website for easy reference. You can describe how you want to work with that group. Maybe you're going to donate to that group. Maybe you're just going to volunteer some hours, or maybe you're going to actually collaborate with them on a bigger project. And so that is just how you can break that down. And then you also want to make sure that whoever you're collaborating with has a positive brand image and has some sort of history of at least having good CSR initiatives. Because if you choose a group that says, yeah, we have hundreds of CSR initiatives, it's awesome, but you go in and dig a little bit deeper and you find that company has actually a really bad brand reputation. There are plenty of groups that start going into these CSR tactics. They don't fulfill it. Their consumers say, well, hey, I invested like money in this. I came and bought your products for this and you're not using it for it now. You don't want to team up with those people, because you're going to get that secondhand burn from working with a company that's not as reputable. So you want to make sure, are the values of that company related to your own mission and vision? And do they align well as a partner with your company? And so I've just got a place for 3 of those businesses. And so it's better to keep all of your options open and see who all you can collaborate with, either big groups, small groups, or smaller vendors and different partners that are working with you. But it's important to make sure that if you do partner with somebody and they are putting in the efforts, that you recognize them properly. And so the last one down here is just the KPI type. And so the reason that we have this, and I'm going to get rid of these random numbers here, is you want to be able to define how are you going to track the success of this CSR initiative? Because if you're able to share the kind of data and the impact that you're actually making, it's a lot easier to say, here's the proof that I have made over like the several quarters of the year. And this is like the ultimate goal that I want to get to, and just being very transparent and clarifying what initiatives you're taking on with your consumers so that they can walk through the process like side by side with you, honestly. the more that they understand what you're doing, why you're doing it, what goals you're trying to achieve, the more trust that you can build with these consumers, and the better you can have a deeper relationship with your clients too. And so, Gabe, I'm going to have you give me a few different KPI types that would be applied to helping these students.
So I would say, you can tell me if I'm on track here. I would say probably the first thing I would want to track is like their financial literacy as it relates to business, because business finances and personal finances are similar but not the same. So I would want to make sure that I could measure like their fluency, that they understand how businesses operate, because there's and I think we can measure this based on like testing them throughout their school year at the program, because there's tons of misinformation out there that we all hear periodically, especially as entrepreneurs, of like, oh yeah, that business makes $1 million, that person must be a millionaire, right? That's not quite how business works. You don't get to keep all the money you collect on the top line. So that would probably be one of the things I would want to track. I'd also want to track. Yeah, I'll start there. Is that the right direction? Is that what you're thinking?
Yep, and I actually added up here. I went back to the slide so that everybody could see some of the really like high level examples of different CSR tactics. But you're right. You're on the right track.
Yeah, I would probably also want to track their their knowledge and then competency over time, because I started this entrepreneurial initiative in this alternative school, and then other entrepreneurs had come in, so like I would connect with those other entrepreneurs, as well. But I'd probably want to track their ability to like understand business processes at a production level, because that's a super important part of a business that when you start in business, I don't think most entrepreneurs think about it as like a factory assembly line. And if you start to view your business as like, we start here, we do this, we do quality assurance here, and we deliver here. When you break things down like that, it's so much easier to have an effective business, and it's also a lot easier to eliminate a bad business idea when you can't even like conceptualize the production line of how you're going to do it, whether it's virtual, physical, consulting, whatever the services are. Those are probably two things that I could measure pretty specifically with that age group, like to make sure they had foundational knowledge, because that's like the stuff I teach my son, and he's like, oh yeah, that's not a good business, there's no profit. I'm like, yeah, don't do that one. Or he's like, that would be hard to deliver. I'm like, yeah, that would be hard to deliver. So those are the things that I would measure with the whole student group.
That's perfect. Thank you. So we've got two different ones. And you said financial liberty or financial
literacy.
Literacy, not liberty.
Yeah. And liberty if you're literate. But
if you're right, exactly.
Yeah.
And then let's do entrepreneurship competency. Of course, I'm choosing all the big words. So, and if we don't have the exact measurements of this, it's fine. We can just add some numbers so that we can show kind of how this influences the next tool. But I guess what would you say? We can use like a scale of 10. Why don't we do that? So what do you think like the financial literacy was on a scale of like 1 to 10 for these students when they started?
Probably 0, to be honest.
0? That's okay. So let's make this all a single number. And your goal was to get them to totally understand the...
Yeah, idealistically, yeah, that's what I thought it would be.
So let's just make this a regular number. All right. As a 10, I mean, and we can define these quarters differently. You said it was over the course of several weeks. If you could break it up into quarters, what do you think that like progression level was like? Do you think it was like a fast progression, a slow progression?
I would say it kind of like hockey sticked at the end. So like if I was going, it was probably like a 1 in the first quarter, like if I'm kind of translating timelines, to like a 3, and then probably like a 6 and an 8. I don't think I got to 10, but we made a lot of progress. So.
And that's totally fine. So we've got the first KPI type, and then for entrepreneurship competency or knowledge, we can do the same deal, kind of like on a scale of 1 to 10. What do you think that process was like?
I would say like definitely starting at 0. I mean, there wasn't any knowledge of like how to develop a product or all that good stuff.
Oops. Okay. And what do you think that goal was? Same deal, 10? Or did you have the expectation that they were going to reach a total of 10, or did you have a lower goal out of 10?
Yeah, I would say like I expected 7.
A 7, okay.
And then this progressed a little bit faster because like I was surprised they jumped in and they tried, and like it's actually a good reminder. Like the fastest way to learn to be an entrepreneur is to try and fail a lot. So Q1 I'd probably say is like a 2. Then it was like a 5, and then 7, and I'm giving them a 10 because everybody 2.5x their capital, and that's a great measurement of competency. And everybody produced and sold products to new customers that they never sold to before, and so yeah, I'm giving that a 10. So.
Okay, that's perfect. And then just to finish rounding this out, I've got some additional suggestions too, though I wanted to add, unless you have any other ones that you can think of right off the top of your head. And 2 other options that we can do, and again, this is just to show kind of what the functionality of this tool is, but we could measure like student happiness, how many students were actually interested in the topic, to know that feedback of having to take your course was something that they actually enjoyed. Because I think you said a few students were not interested in this idea, but most of them were, right?
Yeah, that's probably a good one, because I actually think that's a great thing. I think that's a great indicator of success when you're running any type of CSR initiative, because you actually will repel people, and I think that's a really good thing, in my opinion.
Perfect. So obviously we want a scale of 0 to 10. Students don't know what they're getting into, but hopefully all of them love it. But I mean, for how interested students were in the topic, do you think everybody was really interested right at the bat? Did any fall off towards the end?
Yeah, I had like, I have to think about the exact numbers, but if we're saying like 10 students, I had 3 drop out. So I don't know. And they dropped out in like Q2, as far as if we're using like that kind of timeline.
So probably maybe like a medium level of interest in the course, like at the beginning.
Yeah.
Maybe dropping a little bit, maybe dropping down a little bit, depending on some of the students that left, or maybe it was just a slow progression of growth, so we can just go from like 5 to 6.
Yeah.
And then do you think most of your students were pretty impressed with their own skills and what they learned in the course by the end of it?
Yeah, everybody that stuck with it was thrilled. A few people gave up, but that's life business for you.
Perfect. So we can use those measurements, and then I want to get rid of all these zeros. So, I mean, was there anybody else that you partnered up with when you were going through this process? So it could have been like parental outreach, like school outreach, or you reaching out to them?
The students reach out to other local businesses that are like right around that business. So that's one thing they did. I collaborated with the owner, obviously, and then my sister actually took over teaching a future session. So, because she owns a gymnastics club that she's had for 25 years or something. She's been an entrepreneur forever.
All right, perfect. So I think that's all of the main pieces. Again, for this tool, you can go in and fill out some more of those details. Those don't play into the transparency tool, but it's just to make sure that you're able to keep all the notes as you're doing these bigger steps of the research. But we'll keep these business names pretty generic for now. So if you have managed to go through and fill out all of these different sections, then you're going to find that when you go over to your transparency report tool, it's actually going to go ahead and put all that information in for you. So remember, we said we needed to add the mission statement. We added our vision, because if we're going to post this report online or on our website, on our social media channels, sending out a newsletter, you want to make sure that you have all the information. You can't just say, hey, we helped a bunch of students with entrepreneurship, and people are gonna be like, that's cool. Like, what are you talking about? So it's important to make sure that you remind people of like, these are like the values that we hold dear to like our company. And we just want to remind everybody of what we do so that the rest of this actually makes sense. So we've got our mission and vision statement. We've got that commitment. So saying, like when Gabe explained what the problem was that he was trying to solve, we were committed to helping younger kids learn how to become a successful entrepreneur before reaching adulthood by teaching them simple skills, including money management, creative thinking, and collaboration. So making sure that we added that information ahead of time allowed it to just automatically insert itself into our spreadsheet so that you don't have to actually do anything to create these reports, because reports can be very time consuming. They can be confusing, and formatting them is really difficult. And so this is a quick, easy way to track the different progress of your CSR efforts and be able to go ahead and market them as soon as you get those kind of initiatives created. Because even if you don't have all of those different quarterly numbers, even if you have the first quarter or even just the basics, this is where we're starting, creating those announcements, you're still able to slowly show the different changes over time. And so we've got our social responsibility initiatives here and the different KPIs that we set. You can also see the rate of change, so we can know how close you were to meeting that goal, whether you fell short, whether you surpassed it, or just barely met it. And so it also is something where if you want to change the title of these charts, you just have to go in here and double click on it, and you can change that title, but everything else is already added in there for you, so you don't have to add anything. And then also,
one thing to point out, because I know you're going to move to social, but scroll back up, Kayla, is if you hover over those charts, there's 3 dots that come up when you click on them, and you can click the 3 dots to the right there, and you can download these charts as PNGs or PNG images. So you automatically have something to drop in your social media. So that's why it's a good idea to change that title about your KPI or whatever it is. And so I want to point that out to everybody too that has the tool.
Yes, thank you. And in that intro getting started, you can also download it as a PDF. And this is something that, again, spreadsheets is something that is not always the funnest to deal with, but this also has some steps so you can download it as a PDF too. So thank you for including that, Gabe. And so now that this is all done, again, you can download it as an image. You can even download it as a PDF to upload on your website if you don't want to use an image file. And if you go through and actually fill out all the different parts, which we kind of skipped around the business partnership section, it'll not only add the business name here, but it'll also include the logo if you go in and add that, so that it's a fully rounded report and it's something that you can just quickly go and market to.
That's awesome, Kayla. I can't wait to start using this for ourselves too.
Oh, thank you. And then, of course, we go through all the work. So the cool thing is step 1 is the most work that you have to go through for each of these different steps. The transparency tool is just double checking that you have everything correct, making sure it looks good. And if it doesn't, going back and just refining some of those areas that are included in the chart, but ultimately no work here. And then also, it's important to think as you're going through and creating these different CSR tactics, it's really important that you talk about it, right? So I know some of the things I've heard from a lot of different clients is how do you go about talking about something without sounding like a narcissist and just bragging about yourself? Because it is important that you share these concepts with your customers so that you can start doing those connections and making people aware of the different initiatives that you're taking. But starting that is definitely a lot harder to do. And so in this last tab that I have for you guys, I have the different post types that you should be creating. I have the topics that you can talk about, and then I'll scroll down more to discuss this a little bit more. But I also have the best places that you can post this. And so the things where you see that are green is obviously a place where you can post these kinds of post types. But the ones that are in the gold star, you're going to see is going to be the best place to post it. So if you're limited on time and you're not able to make as much content as you want, or maybe you don't have a team behind you and you're just a single entrepreneur, this is how you can prioritize, okay, well, if I'm going to make this post, where should I put the most of my effort and my time into? You can build onto other parts later or figure out a better system at another time, but at least you know where the top platforms to post are. And so we've got basic things like if you're going to start your CSR initiative, you should probably announce it to everybody so that everybody knows what you're up to and kind of what your goals are, getting that discussion going, getting consumer and employee feedback on the initiatives that you're taking, and just making sure that everybody's really involved in that community from the very start. A few other types of posts, and I'll show you guys these more down below, but you can do an explanation and background, so Gabe did a great job of explaining to us why he chose his CSR tactic or why he chose that initiative. And so you can create posts around that. You can create reels, you can create videos, you can write it in a newsletter, just giving people some information of why that matters to you and why you are wanting to make that change in your community is really important to make sure that everybody understands the different KPI types that you're including and the kind of resources that you're wanting to dedicate to it. You can also get people to do call to actions. This is pretty good if you are wanting to do more partnerships or if you're doing something that includes more charity donations and getting your community involved in that. And then progress updates, that's where your transparency tool comes in really handy, because all you have to do is just go update a few basic numbers. And then you can, again, download that same exact spreadsheet and say, all right, here's the change that we've made in Q2. Here's what it looks like now. And people will still be able to see the progress that you're making. Another option is if you have a bigger team, doing employee spotlight. And so making sure that, again, we do CSR tactics for both the internal and external side. But the more that you have your employees on board with the path that you're taking, the more that you can also have them give different ideas and give different feedback and participate in these different initiatives that you're taking. So make sure that you give them a little bit of credibility and put them in the spotlight for the efforts that they're doing, so that you can just continue to increase that morale and have your team back you up in these sort of these practices. Another thing is you can also do partner appreciation posts. You can do active community engagement. So if you're doing something that's in person or local, you can invite people actively out to participate in your CSR tactics that you're choosing. Impact stories are also really powerful. So not only, I mean, imagine how great it would be if you were able to get the feedback from, Gabe, from one of the parents that was, whose kid was going to the school where you were teaching the entrepreneurship class. If they were able to say, my son knows how to manage money. He even double checks me when we're at the store paying with all of our coins. Those kind of stories are really, really important for getting that feedback. Another one too is you can do reminder and reinforcement posts to make sure that everybody is remembering, especially if you have a long CSR tactic, that you're continuously making little bits of progress. And then ultimately when it's done, it's really important not to just drop off and say, all right, we're finished. There's the final report. See ya. It's good to talk about the celebration of whether you met the goal or you didn't. It's good to be transparent and just honest about the challenges that you face, the things that you were able to learn from what you encountered, and just sharing with people more of the human side of your business and showing that, there is a personality behind the team, and whether you fall short of those goals or you surpass them, making sure that people feel like they're really, really connected with you and really side by side in these initiatives is really important. Because if you go to do more of these kind of CSR tactics in the future, you've already built a lot of good credibility, and you can keep building onto that legacy continuously, like Microsoft is doing right now. And so here's a couple of tips and tricks for just CSR content creation. And then also down below, I know some of the basic things that we have is social media channels, company website, and then internal and external newsletters. That's pretty vague. And so I went ahead and I actually created the different types of posts that you can make for each of these different channels. So if you're like, oh, I don't know if I just want to write a text post, awesome. Go make an Instagram TV video, go create a carousel post, or maybe go post a reel on your Facebook account. Twitter, same deal. We've got LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram here. We also have Pinterest if you have Pinterest accounts. And then same deal for website, just the different areas where you can actually post this in your website so that it makes sense and it's drawing attention in the ways that it needs to. And then also how you can separate that internal newsletter to make sure your employees are on the same page as you if you are the one initiating the CSR tactic, but also how to take some of that information and turn it into, example, an executive summary that you send out to your clients, for maybe it doesn't have as many details as you share to the internal team about the progress that you guys are making, but to giving them the high level of, where you're at and where you're still moving forward with. But that is pretty much the entire setup of this tool. And so does anybody have any questions? I know spreadsheets is something that can be really hard to navigate, or even just any questions or controversies on CSR tactics, feel free to drop those in the chat. But Gabe, I'd love to hear your feedback, because I know you've got several other CSR initiatives that you've been taking on. So how do you think this is going to help us in the future,
Yeah, I really like this specifically because it's simple and easy to prepare in the beginning. Obviously, you have to do the actual work of finding the initiative you want to start and finding the right partners and all of that. And something that we always talk about here at Business Marketing Engine is, our first guiding principle is relationships first. And I would apply the same thing here. It's find the folks that, you really feel aligned with and, have the same heart and intentions with you. And that's the baseline for me, not necessarily what they do for business or not necessarily how big their company is. Those are factors that you want to consider when you're making an impact and you want to make an impact. But really start with do I feel energetically, spiritually, ethically aligned with this person or this company, because that's going to allow you to make the biggest impact. A couple other things that we've done for years as a company, and now we will be sharing even more about, is We, supported our local food bank. That's something that's just really near and dear to my heart. There's been, I grew up I grew up pretty poor, not having a lot to eat in some situations. And so that's something that's always been close to my heart. So we've been a part of the food bank for years. We also give to a micro lending company called Zadisha. That's one of the original micro lending companies on the planet as far as the model that they hold. And so every month, the money that I've invested over the years is just reinvested and lent out to. They do a ton of work in Africa. I believe they split into other continents and areas now. But I get to log in and go and look and say, wow, like the money that I loaned, this person got to open a new brick and mortar store, or they got to open a new website company, or whatever it was. And so I absolutely love just helping entrepreneurs get started, from the ground level up. So those are things that we're involved with. And I'd encourage everybody to realize that two things, both of those all three initiatives that I just talked about are not huge checks that I had to write, especially in the beginning. When I started giving to the food bank, it was like $20 a month. And it's like, I could probably swing that. That was years and years and years ago. The entrepreneurial kind of youth education aid, I just donated my time. Like, I was happy to do that. It didn't cost me anything. I think I put some cash in it because I was loaning everybody cash for the little businesses, or giving them cash that they turned around into profit. So I was like a free donor for their little startup. For Zadisha, I started, and I think I put $100 in years ago, and I watched that $100 turn into like hundreds of dollars of loans. And $100 US dollars goes a long, 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 long way in developing countries. So I want to remind people that you can make a massive impact on the world, and you don't have to be Bill Gates to do it. Someday maybe you get to write those big checks or you do something like that, but that's a huge piece of what I encourage folks to think about. And I have a couple other just comments here as we're wrapping up, Kayla, but is there anything else on your side before we close out here?
I don't think so. Unless anybody has any questions for me, I think that I am all set on my end.
Awesome. Well, thank you everybody for being here. A couple things I want to remind you of is if you need any help with this, I know we have some BME crew members here, so you of course can just post right in school, and Kayla or one of the team members will help you with that. For those of you that are not part of BME crew yet, throw that up on the screen so everybody can see how to get there. We help our clients implement strategic long-term strategies that help them grow their business. And so you can reach out to me if you have questions. You can go to bmecrew.com if you're ready to get started. There's no long-term commitment. That's a month-to-month membership. And we can help you with amazing initiatives like this. You get full access to tools just like you saw today, and a bunch of amazing other tools that our team puts together. We can help you with your technology, with your marketing. We can help you with like leadership strategy, things that you need internally, whatever it is. It's basically our way of being able to give back and allow people to have a flexible membership that helps their businesses grow. And it starts at, it's a few bucks a day. It's not that expensive, and it's a great way to grow and move forward. So thanks, Colin. I was so glad that you were here. Thank you, Keith, for the feedback. I agree. Kayla's work is outstanding. It's kind of going back to what I said at the beginning. If you want to grow a business, find the right people. And you can find the right people, and you don't have to write a six-figure check to do that. You get to work with Kayla week in and week out when you sign up for BME Crew. And thank you, Keith. Keith just said, as someone using the BME Crew, you will not regret signing up to get their help. I really appreciate that, Keith. And so you can absolutely get all the support you need for the right stage that you're at. And here at BME, we never push people into saying like, this is the only package, or you have to spend this money, or this much money, or you have to spend 10 grand to get something, or you have to do X, Y, Z. We are all about making sure that we meet you where you're at and serving you at the highest level, because we know if you're willing to invest a couple $100 a month in yourself, you can grow your business. And if your business grows and we get to partner with you in the long term, that's awesome. If your business grows and you get to hire marketing people internally, that's awesome too. Does not matter to us what route you take. We just want to make sure that you invest in yourself. And so that's why we hold these free workshops. Any questions, you can reply to the emails you got. You can message me if we're connected on social already. You can head over to bmecrew.com to learn more about working with us, but we would absolutely love the opportunity to serve you all. And it would mean a lot to me too, for everybody that's watching this, if you'd share this with somebody else that could use this in their business. This is free training, free resources that we just want to serve the entire entrepreneurial community that is aligned with, making the world a better place. And so it's such an honor to have all of you here. I can tell that this was just like a really powerful training, Kayla. We had a lot of people on here the entire time, and I appreciate you sharing all this. And Kayla puts hours and hours and hours into the tools and resources that she prepares for these, and she just puts an amazing amount of time and effort and attention into all of our clients that she serves and all of our VME crew members. So thank you, everybody, for being here. I appreciate all of you, and keep your eye out on our social media channels, on our emails that we're sending out. We have more amazing workshops coming like this as always, so you're definitely going to want to see those. And it is our pleasure, Carolyn. We're so glad to have you here. But with that, we will wrap up, and we look forward to seeing everybody on the next workshop and hopefully hearing from you soon. You can reach out to us anytime. We'd be glad to answer any questions you have. But thanks again, Kayla. That was awesome, and we will see everybody soon.
Thanks, guys.